Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Samantha Anderson. I am a freelance artist and teacher hoping to inspire creativity. If you would like more videos like these, please take a second to like and subscribe down below. It really helps in the algorithm of YouTube to help get my videos seen to more people. If you want to receive notifications of when I go live, please make sure to hit the bell and choose all notifications. If you have any questions during or after the class, make sure to pop a comment down below and I will answer it as soon as I can. If interested in learning more about my classes, please follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And feel free to check me out on Patreon, where I teach exclusive classes to those who support me. In Patreon, I also give traceables for all of my live classes, including this one. Lastly, if you would like to share your work after class with me and others who painted along with us, please head over to Facebook, as I have an artist community where you can share your finished painting with us. I'll leave links for all of that in the description box below. Thanks for joining me, and let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to another tutorial here on YouTube. My name is Samantha Anderson. If you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit like and subscribe as I put out videos on a regular basis and classes that you can join along and paint with. Today we are doing this beautiful little bluebird on a blossom tree, so I'm super excited to just have some fun and paint. So I hope that you'll grab your brushes and paint along with me. So let's go ahead and go over some supplies, and then we will go over kind of how we're going to be doing the class. And I'll also share some of the classes that we've been doing recently, as well as in Patreon and YouTube. Okay, so to start off with, I have a 11 by 14 stretched canvas. I do have the sides and top and bottom to paint, so just keep that in mind. And I kind of just paint it as I go. And then for that, I have a traceable, which is available in my Patreon, which you can go and grab right now. I will post the link in the description, or I have the link in the description, as well as in the live chat down below. So you can go ahead and grab that if you want it. And that's available in the lilac tier. So it's the $5 tier. When you join today, or if you join today, you'll get access for an entire month starting today. So that has changed in the last couple years. So actually that's changed from this month. It used to be you get charged and then you'll get charged on the first of the month every month. But Patreon has switched it so that everybody, it's like a normal subscription. So you sign up today and you'll get charged on the same day the next month. So you might get next month's too, just depending on when I do that class. So you'll get today's and you'll get access to, I'm doing another one in 2 weeks, as well as you'll get access to the entire archive of live class traceables. So if you've ever looked at any of my classes on YouTube and you want a traceable for any of those classes, that will be in there as well. So feel free to have a look at that. You can go in, you can grab any of the ones you want. You can stay for a month, you can stay for longer. It's essentially like supporting those like buy me a coffee type of things. And yes, it is a subscription, but it's super easy to just unsubscribe essentially, and you won't get charged again. If you have more questions to that, please let me know down below. You can also message me on Facebook. If you have questions, I can answer them all there. But yeah, so that's my Patreon. I have traceables. I also have other classes that are only exclusive in Patreon, as well as in my Cobalt tier, we go weekly. I go live weekly with that class, and we get to paint for an hour and 15 every week, and that's a lot of fun. We get to go a little more in depth with our paintings in that one, because we get to spend more time with it. But for today, it's going to be about a 2-hour class, maybe a little less. But yeah, so I have this traceable. It's available to the $5 tier and up. And yeah, go ahead and go grab that. If you do not want to use the traceable, that is totally fine. You can draw whatever bird you would like. Maybe you have a favorite bird, you can go ahead and do that as well. You can swap it out. And then I just have some general flowers. So yeah, that's gonna go ahead and be it for that. So for the colors today, very, very, very basic colors today. I have my Ultramarine Blue, and that's because a lot of the colors today are going to be fairly muted in the sky, but I do have a Phthalo Blue as well, because the sky tends to have a tiny bit more of a greenish hue than the bird. But there also is that kind of greenish hue in the bird as well. So we're kind of going to be using a little bit of both. If you don't have a Phthalo Blue, just having a green on hand would work too. We're going to be having a little bit of green in the flowers anyways, so that works fine. So you can have those out. And don't be confused by the bottles. These are not craft acrylics. They are Hippie Crafter full body professional acrylic paints. It's the thick paint that you would normally get out of a tube of paint. They're just in the bottles, which I really enjoy having the bottles, because if I squeeze out too much, I can really easily put it back. I can't really do that with the tubes. So I really enjoy having the bottles, and I'll refill these with larger portions of my paint. But just so that no one's confused, they're not soft body like craft acrylic paints, you know, like you would find for like a couple dollars. It's not that. They're full body acrylics. And then the other thing you're going to need is you're going to need either a pink or a red. It's kind of up to you what you want to use. But in here, there's some really pretty like pinks. If you don't have a pink on you, that's totally fine. You can make a kind of pinkish purpley with some red and purple or red and blue. But yeah, so that's that. And then I always have out my white, my black, and my raw umber. These are kind of my staples for all of my classes. Is going to be those three colors. I don't always use the brown, but most of the time I use all three of those. And then the last color is going to be your yellow. There's quite a bit of yellow in the middle of the flowers, so don't forget that. Okay, so these are our colors. Obviously there's a little bit of alterations with those. Use what you have. Don't go out and buy like specifically what I have. That's usually why I don't say exactly what I have, because it's really whatever you have on hand. It's totally fine. If you want to know, I have yellow medium, rouge, I think that's how you pronounce it, but it's just like a magenta, like a dark magenta pink. And then I have, this says pale green, but let's be honest, it is not pale. When I think of pale, I think of like Easter, and it's not Easter color. It's a very vibrant green in my opinion. And then I have Phthalo Blue and Ultramarine Blue. I usually do specify what blue, because they do have very different hues to them, and for some reason because I use blues all the time, I like to know what blue I'm using, because one has a very pretty Phthalo Blue green hue to it, and the other one is very cold in its coloring. So when I talk about warm and cold, your warms are going to be more on the greenish yellow red, and cold it's going to be on the like blue purple kind of colors. So yeah, in terms of blue. Okay, and technically red I think would make it cooler, even though it's like a warm color, but it makes it purpley. So okay, I believe that is it. In terms of other supplies, we have our waters. I usually have 2 waters on hand, just so that I can, if one water gets too dirty, I can very easily, very easily use a clean water. I don't have to go out, and waste time getting up and going getting my water. So I have 2 waters. I have paper towel. I have a palette. I love this glass palette, and that is paired with my my little scraper knife that I have. Yep. And then I also have a palette knife, which I use all the time. Every single class I use this palette knife for mixing colors. If you've never done that before, like, you're never going to go back, because it is so useful to be able not only to mix in larger quantities, but you also don't lose a ton of paint in your brushes. You keep your water clean, and you keep the wear and tear on your brushes less, because you're not using them without like using them, you know. And then as an added bonus, if you end up using that same brush to paint, you're not going to get streaks of unmixed paint that got stuck in the middle of your brush, and that are now coming out on your canvas. So super helpful thing, especially for beginners. You're able to see all the colors ahead of time. You're able to mix all the colors ahead of time, and it's just a really helpful tool. So if you don't have a glass palette and a palette knife to pre-mix your colors, especially as a beginner, it is so helpful. I have all of the supplies on my Amazon shop if you want to go look at them. It is an affiliate link, but that's just the easiest way for me to share what I use and how I use it. And I either have exactly what I use or something close to it, maybe if it's out of stock or whatever. But guys, I use this every single class. I love it. It's really easy to clean. I used to use a plastic palette, and it, like, if I didn't clean it right away, it was a nightmare. It'd have to soak for hours in the warm water, and then I'd forget about it, and it was just a mess. And it would take so long to clean it all off, and even then, it would never get like fully clean, which like killed my parts of my OCD brain. But yeah. So, anyways. So if you don't have these things, highly recommend, treat yourself, go get them. You will not change back. Other brushes that we're going to be using, so that's kind of all the tools. The brushes that we're going to be using, I just have my standard brushes on hand, and I'll tell you what they are. We're going to go ahead and grab a few brushes. So the ones that I typically use in all of my classes is going to be your but probably a 3/4 inch filbert. So I have a large filbert, I have a medium to small size filbert, and then I have a couple round brushes. One of them is about a medium sized brush, and I don't say the numbers because the numbers in this kit might be different in other kits. It's like women's jeans. You might be a 4 in one brand and an 8 in another brand. It's just the brands are all kind of different. So I'm just kind of saying generally what size it is. It's not a small, it's not a large, it's a medium. So that's going to be, this is going to be our rough brush. It's a cloud brush. It's a texture brush. I use it for dry blending. We will be doing a lot of that in the background of this class. So I'm excited for that. We're not going to spend too much because it is kind of blurred out and in the background. But you're going to want to have some type of round brush that you can be rough with. And I encourage you to have a brush that you can do that for clouds and anything that you want to just add texture, and so that you don't ruin all your other brushes. Just have one designated brush that you can kind of just roughly do things with, so that you keep all your other brushes nice. And then I have two other small brush, one's kind of pointed, one's kind of round. I use them for different things. And then I have a liner brush. That's pretty much the brushes that we're going to be using. I do have a flat brush on hand and a liner brush, which we might use maybe later in the class. Or if you want to be a little bit more loose with your painting, you can literally use like one brush for like the foreground, and that is a lot of fun. I'll show you what we did, what I did yesterday, but it'll be released on Friday, which I'm super excited for. And that's in Patron, and I'll show you that in a bit. Okay, so that should be all of our supplies. If you have any questions, make sure to put them down below, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get out our white get out a bunch of white because we're going to be doing this whole background. We're going to get out a tiny bit of black and our Ultramarine Blue and a touch of Phthalo Blue, because there is a bit of green hue. It's funny because on the palette they look almost identical, but once you start mixing them in, the color comes to life. Okay, we're going to take our handy dandy palette knife and mix together some colors. So what we're going to do, actually what we're going to do first is, if you've never done a traceable before, sometimes it's helpful to have a little bit of an outline just in case you go over certain things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a small brush and get some black, and I'm mostly just going to put in where the stem is, or not the stem, the branch. I'm going to put in where the branches, not branches, branch is. And this will help when we kind of go over this section for the background. If we go over it, we'll still be able to kind of know where it is. And these flowers, I put in the flowers just to give an example of trying to kind of figure out where to put them. You don't need to put in the flowers. We can put in the flowers later. With the traceable, it's kind of a, I put as much information on the traceable as possible, but you get to choose what you put on the canvas. Like, put however much you think you need to be able to execute the painting. So if you only want to put the bird, that's fine. I was just going to put the bird and just the branch, but I figured it might be helpful to see the whole thing, so I did put in the other things. I don't necessarily think that that's necessary because flowers are very organic and different, and I don't think that they have to look exactly like the picture, which none of it has to look exactly like the picture, but sometimes it's helpful. In terms of animals, it's always helpful to have some sort of an outline, unless you're very versed in painting certain animals. Having a sort of outline is very, very helpful in just prepping for that. So I'm just going to very gently put in where the outer layer is, in just a little bit of a grayish black, and this is just gonna help me later when I want to start painting that. I'll know where it's supposed to go. Okay, I'm just kind of brushing it on. I'm being fairly loose in terms of where everything is, and my brush is a little bit older, so it's kind of frayed a little bit, so it's getting kind of that natural feather look. That was not really my intention, but hey, it works. And then I'm also going to do the eye. The eye is important because I really want to keep the location of the eye. I don't think I'll go in this much, but it's helpful just in case I do. Okay. Okay. That is pretty good. So while that's all kind of drying, I'm going to rinse out my brush, and let's go ahead and mix all of our colors. Okay. I'm going to grab my palette knife. I don't know why I said palette knife, but it's a palette knife. I'm going to grab a bunch of white, and we're just going to come to the middle of the palette. And I imagine we'll be using just a darker version of this blue for the bird. So if you end up making too much, that's great. You won't have to make it later. So I'm gonna make a fairly medium color, not too dark, but not too light. And I'm gonna add a little bit of my phthalo blue in there to add a little touch of warmth and kind of a tealish color instead of the cold blue. Just warm it up a little bit. And that is pretty good. And we're gonna have a lot of fun with the background because I love doing clouds. I don't know about you, but I love doing clouds because it's just so like free and fun, at least for me. If you're not used to doing clouds, sometimes it can feel a little hectic if you're not really sure what you're doing. But yeah, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab my large flat brush and my my texture cloud brush, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to get a little bit of just a little bit of water on my brush, and let's see, just a tiny bit, and we're kind of going to just figure out where the clouds start and end. There's kind of a fluffy cloud that comes up here. And right now I just have a really, really light version of this blue on here. It's very watered down. And I'm just kind of figuring out where everything is. So this, I think I want to be white. Okay, so kind of just figuring out where everything is. And I think that's a good thing. So now that you kind of have where everything's going to be, we're gonna go ahead and put a fairly thick coat of this paint on here. And because we're putting a fairly medium to dark color on white, we may need to do 2 coats, and that is totally fine. I'm gonna go right over these. I'm gonna go right over the flowers over here. I'm gonna put this over here. And what's nice about doing kind of like an undercoat like this is you can kind of figure out if this color is gonna work. And I'm actually gonna lighten up my color in terms of water. And I'm gonna go ahead and just do an undercoat of this even over the bird too, because we want the bird to be blue as well, and we might as well get that first coat while we're doing the rest of it. So that works out nicely. I'm gonna go into a little bit of white. And I'm gonna mix with whatever's on my brush. I'm gonna mix with white, and we're gonna do just a fairly quick white coat. That's right here. get a little bit more white for over here. This is pretty much blended in over here. And if you want to go into a little bit more white to make this difference, you can, but it's not totally necessary. And if you've never done an undercoat like this, I do them all the time. I don't know why I didn't start with this today, or why I didn't think to start with it today, because the majority of it is, the majority of this painting is blue color, you know. And by getting just a coat of paint over all of this really helps the painting process. And let's see. Okay. I'm going to go around the sides as well. And then don't forget to do the bottom. Probably the hardest thing that you'll encounter in this painting is being able to see the white flowers on a white cloud background. And that's because the flowers that we're seeing are actually a little bit more in the shade area. I would say a lot of it is. And so it's actually appearing darker than the bright white clouds behind it. So you can just keep that in mind when we're painting the flowers. You won't be able to paint white on white. You'll be able to paint kind of a bluish gray on white, because a lot of the background is white. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint a little bit more white over here. And this whole section is fairly white. So I'm just going to add another coat of white on these clouds area. Okay, now for the bottom, we're going to kind of figure out where we want our dark patches. So I'm going to grab some of this sky color blue and add just a touch of black to it, just to make it ever so slightly gray. And we're going to go ahead and put in a little bit of our gray markings, and it looks very dark. I promise it'll lighten up. Just very roughly go ahead and put in some gray markings, and we're gonna switch over to our round kind of dry brush, what do we call it, cloud brush, and you're gonna put in the white in all the places that the dark is not. And you're just gonna be very rough with it and just put it on there. And then what you're gonna do, you're gonna be rough with it. So make sure you have a brush that either you don't care about or is your texture brush. You're gonna go in and you're just gonna go back and forth, and you're gonna blend in all of the sides of it. And I'm being super sporadic in terms of, like, I'm not, you know, being very precise. And then I'm going to go around again and blend it a little bit more. And then you can bring out some of that. You can move the white into the dark, or the dark into the light. And you'll see even how I'm holding the brush, it's very like I'm coloring. And you can make it as rough or as blended as you want. All right, and we're going to come in a little bit, come in with some white. And lighten up just a little area of it. And then just blend the very tip of it. You can also dab if you want to, depending on how textured you want it. And the clouds don't have to look exactly like the picture. You're allowed to paint clouds that are that are different. But any clouds that you want a little bit lighter, you'll just take a little bit of white, you'll put it in that section, and then you're going to just kind of blend it out. Come in here and make this section lighter. All right. That is pretty good. So now what we're gonna do while that dries, we're gonna take this blue color and we're going to do another coat of it. I'm gonna do another coat. I'm doing the sides first just so that I don't forget about them, as I sometimes do. Okay. And you'll see the second coat just really amplifies the how dark it is. I'm gonna go straight over this one. I'm just making sure it's all smooth. All right, and while this is all wet, we're gonna go ahead and take any place where it is smooth, smooth in terms of blending. It kind of comes down here a little bit. Anywhere where it is smooth and blended, you're going to take your rough brush and you're just going to rough up that line a little bit. You're going to bring the blue down, you're going to bring the white up. You'll notice I'm just roughing up the edges here. You can always go in and add a little bit of shadow if you need to. You can go ahead and just keep adding. And then for this side, because it's a little bit more blended, you're going to want to make sure that this side is a little bit more wet. So I'm gonna go ahead and add white over here. Don't forget to add that to the sides. And I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of white to this section. And just like before, you're just gonna add it in little bits. And once you're done with that, you can start adding little tiny bits of cloud. And this is where it gets fun, because there's really no wrong way to do this. As long as you have barely any paint on your brush. Just gonna add little dots here. Just add that fluffiness to it. Alright, and that's how I would do those clouds. I think I'm going to get a tiny bit more white and put it in the corner. You start with the lightest part first, and then you start working that down. Do the top here. All right. Get this side. Now you're going to add one last coat of white anywhere on the bottom layer of clouds that needs a little touch of light or highlight. And if you need to blend it in, and you have too much on your brush, you can either wait until you're kind of gotten to a point where you don't have a whole bunch of paint on your brush, or you can just try to do just like the tip of it. gonna lighten this section up again. That blue is gonna look really good against just like the pure white, essentially. I'm gonna go down just a little bit here. And again, just taking the tip of my brush and wiggling it. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse out my brush and go ahead and blend that in. And come in back with my white. I'm gonna put bits of white. So when you have a lot of white, that's not the time to blend. You have to wait until you get a lot less white on your brush so that you can blend it all together. Okay. Okay, I think that is probably good. I think I might add just a little bit more white over here. Okay. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so with that done, while all of you finish up your clouds, I'll give you a little bit of time to finish all that up. Let's go ahead and go over all of the classes that we're doing over this month and our last live class, okay? So for the first one that we did is gonna be this one. We did this really cute and fun summery donut floaty, and we did this one 2 weeks ago. So if you're on my YouTube, it should be the last class that we did if you're watching this live. So yeah, if you want to paint this one, go ahead and go check that out. Doing the pool part was actually really fun. And it came out really, really well. So if you want to go paint this, this is another free class that you can go do, just like this one. So feel free to go and do that. Go and paint that with me. The other couple of classes are going to be from my Patreon, so they're exclusive to my patrons. The lilac tier, which is the $5 tier, you only have access to my traceables for all of my live classes. You have quick tip videos, and then anything else that I post in Patreon that's exclusive to my supporters. But there's a tier that's right above that. It is a $10 tier. It's the magentas, and that's where I give out a exclusive Friday tutorial, which usually comes out about the second or third week, of the month, depending on how many Fridays there are. And we did this beautiful painting. I absolutely love it. It is our impressionistic style kind of still life of our apples on a tree, and I love this style. It's really, really fun. It's very freeing, and there's not like the pressure. It's like you still get to play around with like realism colors and realism shapes without the pressure of like making it super realistic in how it looks. It's very clearly a painting, and it's very clearly apples on a tree, but there's not that pressure to make it perfect, and it was just a lot of fun. So if you're interested in learning how to do an impressionistic style of like an apple orchard or apples, this one was so fun. And this one specifically is going to be available this Friday. So if you sign up for lilacs for this class right now, if you go into your membership and you add just $5, don't add $5, but change your membership to the magenta tier, that will get you access to this class when it goes live on Friday, which I'm super excited about. It was so much fun. Okay, and then and just like all of the tiers that I have in my Patreon, if you get access to that tier, you'll have access to the entire archive of classes. So I have like almost 70 Friday tutorials. I think this one is technically the 69th Friday tutorial. You will get access to every other single one in my Patreon. So if you decide to become a member of the magenta tier, you will not be able to get through all of the classes in a month unless you do like more than 2 a day. So you will have plenty of access to keep you busy all month long if you decide to join that. And then lastly, our last tier is, there's other like supporting tiers above that, but for the tutorials, I have a cobalt tier, which is specifically working on week by week painting, where you pick up the brush every week and work on a painting. I not only go over more in-depth classes we're able to do more detail within the classes, but you're also able to learn how to pace yourself within a class. So this is what we finished up yesterday, and this is our second time working on the class. If you want to see previous things that we worked on the class, feel free to go to my Facebook, and you can see I post a work in progress post, and that is I usually share both photos, or all 3 photos depending on, or all 4 photos depending on where we are in the painting. But yeah, so this is a really fun way to paint with people, while also stretching out your timing. So a lot of, I don't know how many times that I've done this, where you start a painting and then either you lose interest, or because you stopped in a place that is going to require more effort to pick it up. Like maybe you stopped in the middle of a color and then that color dried, and then now you're going to have to remix that same color. Sometimes that can be like a mental block for picking back up a painting, and then you end up just not painting it again. In this class, I do go over when would be the best time to stop painting. So for instance, I think the first time we painted, it was like 50 something minutes, and then the next time it was like an hour and 10, or like it varies. It's about an hour class each time, but based off of where we are in the painting, you can say, okay, right now this is a great time to stop. Or if you can pick out, like, if we have 20 minutes left for the class, okay, let's do this section instead of this section that's going to take 40 minutes, to kind of plan out how long you have left. And I find, as a mother of 3 young kids, I don't always have 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours to sit and paint. I would love to do that. No distractions, just paint as long as I can. But I can't do that. Sometimes I can only give an hour or 30 minutes. And in this class, we get to explore how to do that. And so that's one of the things that I love about these classes, is that we get to paint for a small amount of time, but working on it each week. And it's just really rewarding to be able to see the progress each week. So that's a lot of fun. All right, and that is the $20 tier. I don't know if I mentioned that. That's the $20 tier. And every tier you are in, you'll get access to everything below it. So the Cobalts also have access to the Magenta tier, which is the Friday tutorials, as well as the Lilacs. And then the Magenta tier also has access to the Lilacs. So each tier has access to every tier below it. So when you join the $20 tier, you're not only joining that tier, you're also joining the other tiers. You have access to everything below it. So I feel like that's a really, really great deal, because not only do you get weekly instruction, but you also get access to a ton of classes, a bunch of videos, quick tips and videos, polls, and all sorts of things that I have within those classes, or within that tier. Okay, hopefully that is enough time for all of you to finish your the cloud background. We're gonna go ahead and put in our, I want to call it a stick. It is a stick, but it's still attached to a tree, so it's not a stick. It is a branch. There we go. Let's go ahead and put in our branch. I'm going to go ahead and rinse out my brushes. I should have done that before I started talking, but that is okay. I'm going to rinse out my brushes, and we're going to go ahead and make our gray. And I'm also going to get out a tiny bit of brown, just ever so slightly. Going to tint it a brown color. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my palette knife. And And typically when you're done mixing a color, you're going to want to wipe it off so it doesn't dry on the palette knife. I forgot to do that, so I'm just trying to wipe mine off. Okay, so we are looking at two different colors for the branch. It's kind of like a grayish color and then a whitish gray color. So I'm going to grab some black and white and see where that lands. This is probably closer to the darker color, except I'm going to add just a tiny bit of brown to this, just to kind of warm it up ever so slightly and darken it a bit, because that adding the brown lightened it up ever so slightly as well. So it's just a little bit of a hue. Okay, I'm going to darken it up a little bit more. And then just with what's on my palette knife, I'm going to grab some white and mix that together. I'll grab a little bit more of this gray. And I'm making the light gray from the dark gray so that they are within the same color palette. If I remixed, it might be too brown, it might be too you know, black or whatever. So I'm using the same color. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and take my small round brush, and I'm gonna go ahead and just put in I'm gonna put in this light color first. And the first thing I'm going to do is cover all of the black that I initially put on. And then we can kind of shape it from there. Don't forget to go around the corner if you have a stretched canvas like I do. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna shape it now with the same color. I'm gonna shape it, wipe off my palette knife before I forget. And I'm gonna shape it so it has all of these like knots on it. And the knots often kind of come on both sides, not always. I'm going to start working in a little bit of this dark color. And I'm going to add a little bit of a dark color on the tops of the knots and things like that. And I'm just going to start allowing a little bit of shading to happen. So I'm going to mix a medium color. So in between my light and my dark, you're going to mix together a brush that is, a color that is in between those. and you're going to go ahead and on the bottom section, like the bottom of it, you're going to go ahead and add this color, and this is going to be the shadow. So essentially the bottom half of it, you're going to add this. You're going to add this color. And then I'm going to rinse my brush out. And I'll go into just the dark color. And I'm going to add just the dark parts of it. And you can dab it, you can put it on, you can wipe it on, however you want to get that paint on there. It is a fairly textured, like I think they're called knots technically, but like some of these don't necessarily look like knots, they just look like textured pieces. I don't know. And you can add different textures to the knots if you want. Alright, so up here I'm going to do a bunch of lines. It's a little bit different up here. Okay, so that is pretty good, I think. And some of this we might not even see, but it's good to get a little bit of that on there. All right. Now I'm going to take more white, and I'm going to mix my lightest gray with it, because I do think there's a little bit of a lighter shade of gray to this. So I'm going to use my textured brush. And mostly focus on the the top of it, not necessarily the whole thing, but the top section of it that is potentially a little bit lighter than the rest. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of lighter texture to it. And I think that is helpful. I am going to add a little bit of a darkerness because this is where the legs are. And just so you know, this bird, I believe this photo was photoshopped, and that the bird is just like photoshopped in there. Which is why the claws are not like clasping around the branch. So just so you know, we're not going to be painting them like that. We are going to be painting them where they're like grasping and clasping the actual branch. Otherwise it would just fall over. I'm going to put it in the element of sitting on a tree. Okay, so while that dries, let's go ahead and put on our first coat of our blue. And if you're like me, your blue, you used all your blue. If you did not use all your blue, make sure that it's not dry and there's no dry pieces in it. That is really important, because if there is, then you're going to want to get rid of it, because we don't want dry pieces in our paint. I'm going to go ahead and get all this blue wet so that it comes off really, really easily. Okay. There we go. Super quick, super easy cleanup. And we're going to go ahead and make our blue. So we're going to use the same colors that we used before. We have our Ultramarine Blue. And our white. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit more of these blues. With more white, I'm going to make a little bit more. Phthalo Blue. And my ultramarine. And then I'm also going to get a little bit more white. Okay. And for this, I'm also going to add a tiny bit of black. Just a very, very small amount, because we want it to gray out ever so slightly. And that's going to be kind of that color that's on the top of the head and kind of underneath. And then we're going to make another kind that is a little bit more on the blue side. Oops, that was ultramarine. I don't need ultramarine, I need phthalo. Oops, that was a lot, but that's okay. Now we have two different blues. They're using the same colors, but one is a little bit brighter and one's a little bit grayer. So that is the difference in that. Okay, so real quick, in terms of coloring, we're gonna do a dark undercoat, and then we're gonna put on our lighter, fluffier colors on top of that. So just keep that in mind when we're doing this. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my probably my filbert, my small filbert brush, and we're gonna put in a undercoat of these two colors. I'm gonna go kind of my gray blue on top, and I'm kind of just going to flick out a little bit. You don't need to flick out too much because there's going to be lighter colors that can do that flicking for you. And any place where there's kind of like more of a blue-gray undercoat that you can see, you're going to go ahead and put that in. And then any place that is a bit more like brighter colored, you're going to come in and add that prettier kind of lighter blue. I'm going ahead and just brushing out. I'm using my filbert on the side, and I'm just using that kind of texture to add that kind of feathery look. I'm gonna add this black in here. And there's a little bit of a black section right here. And we're just going to add this other blue right here. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and add a gray blackish color. And I'm going to go ahead and fill in this middle area with this color. And the reason for that is because you see that dark color peeking through all of the blue. Remember that we're doing the undercoat first. I'm gonna do a line right here. All right, I'm gonna go in with this gray color for the beak, the gray color, the dark gray color that we've been using for the that we used for the branch. And I'm going to go ahead and use the medium color for the top of it. It's going to go right over that. And then you can come in with the the brightest notch, or the brightest color, and put in that little white section. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the black back in the eye. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and continue down with the continuing down the legs. And I'm going to do the right side with black. And the front side with a kind of grayish blue. And then you can go ahead and paint in the the claws, just make sure that they do go around the tree branch and they don't just stop in the midair. You can come in with the lighter colors and give them texture. I'm just kind of blotching on some texture to the legs and the rest of it. Okay, and I might go in with a little bit of a highlight on the very tippy top of it. Okay. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and make these a little bit thinner. I think I went a little bit too thick on my application for the how big they were. So let me just fix that a little bit. All right, that looks good. Let's go ahead and finish out. We have about, let's see, 20-ish minutes left. 20-ish, a little more. But let's go ahead and put in the first coat of our flowers, and we're just going to do this in kind of our whitish off-white color. So I'm going to make just a little bit more of that. So I'm going to need some white and a little bit of black, and then we're going to add just the tiniest bit of blue to them. And actually I'm going to put some of this ultramarine, not ultramarine, I'm going to put some of the Phthalo Blue back because I don't need that much, and that's one of the highlights of being able to put it back. Oops, my apologies, that was very squeaky. And I usually try to only put back what isn't like tainted by another color, just so I'm not surprised when I start painting. Other colors come out of the tube. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get some white. And a little bit of black. Just a little bit, just ever so slightly. And a little bit of blue. was probably a little bit too much blue because we don't want them too blue. So I'm going to add a little bit more white to it. But having a little bit of a darker first coat is fine, because then you can go ahead and add all your highlights, which is sometimes a lot easier than adding your lowlights. Okay, let's go ahead and do this real quick. So I'm going to start off by getting my filbert and figuring out where I want all of these. So some of them are already placed for me, so I'm just going to fill in all of these areas. And there's other parts of this that can kind of, you do want to try to work from back to front. So for the ones that are kind of behind it, if you want to do it in like a different color, that might be helpful, but it's not completely necessary. All right. And we're just going to add these, figure out where your center is, and then you're just going to add these here. And I think I'm just going to stick with that one right there. Can always add other pieces later. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and add white to a little bit of this gray so that I can have two different grays to work off of. A lighter gray and then a darker gray. Just so I can kind of figure out where everything is as I'm going. So working back to front, I'm going to get these pieces here. And then I can go in with the lighter color. And we're just going to keep on going. There is one here. And I think I might need two different brushes for the light and the dark. because the light and the dark are kind of mixing into each other. So I'm going to have a different brush for the light. So I'm going to come back here for the light. And me personally, I don't mind a little bit of texture on my canvases. So I'm going to actually just kind of keep these a little bit just thicker. Okay. Again, we're just gonna keep going. I'm gonna go ahead and start with a lighter color here and come in with a darker color. Come in with some light color on the other side. Blend it together if I want. Okay. I'm going to bring this one out just a little bit more because I kind of want to see it a little bit more out here. Okay. Your flowers are kind of facing every direction. So and then we have a petal that's going this direction. All right, and again, I'm just adding these colors in a way that makes sense to my brain so that I can add them later. All right. Good job. So once you have that, we're now going to go in with our pure white, and I'm going to go in with a smaller brush than what I have. I'm going to do maybe the small round brush. My white. And adding just a little bit of highlight to some of these will just help kind of bring it to life a little bit. It'll help it stand out from the background. Okay, so I'm gonna go down here and lighten up the ones that are down here. Alright, so right here I'm just making sure that the inner part is still dark. Okay, let's go ahead and add in just real quick. We're going to add in a little bit of highlight over here. So I think that is pretty good. Let's go ahead and add our green and pink. Gonna get some green and pink out. And just with that same small brush, we're going to get our green, and I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of brown to it, just to make it a little bit more realistic in its coloring. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. Okay, now I'm just going to add it to all of the inner parts of it. And I'm just going to use my finger to kind of blend that part. Okay, so it looks like I need to go a little bit brighter. And a little bit more brown. Potentially a little bit of yellow might help, actually. And we're gonna go just a little bit here. And I'm just doing this in one stroke. I'm laying down my brush and then I'm pulling it in. Some of them only have glimpses of it. Yeah, so the yellow and lightening it up definitely helped. I'm just going to go ahead and put back, lighten up those areas. Okay, I think that's a good amount. Now I'm going to get out this pink and I'm going to mix it with just a little bit of white. I'm going to put it in this middle area, and the first thing I'm going to do is kind of mix it with I'm going to mix it with the green. And then you can come in with the darker pink right in the middle of it all to make it really, really dark. And these are also going to be the colors of this stem that's right here. We kind of have been holding out on it for a little bit. I'm going to use a little bit of that gray, of those colors, the green. A little bit of that, and you can also use this pink in some of the areas on the the branch. Right. Now that we have that all done and figured out, we're going to let that dry so that we can come back with the stamen, which is like the middle yellow part. And we're going to go ahead and put on our fluffiness. So we're going to go ahead and get out. I'm going to use this light bluish gray to fluff out his head and any other parts that kind of come down a little bit. On his back. And then I'm going to slowly go into that other color. And the trick about this is to not cover up all that black. And you're just going to get lighter colors of the colors that you already used. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and take our small brush, or any brush that's kind of a little bit scrunched, not scrunched, what's the word? A little bit kind of frayed, just ever so slightly. And we're gonna go ahead and just add all of this texture to the bird. And you can be as detailed as you want. And try to work from the bottom to the top. And you can use all sorts of different colors. And sometimes the background is covered up, and other times it's not. And I'm just looking to see what colors I'm putting where. And if you feel like you need to go in with a liner brush, you can always do that. Might go in there for a little bit of those details. I'm going kind of into that light gray a little bit at some parts. The light gray that we used for the sticks, or for the branches, I mean. And it kind of brings out that. You can go into the dark black for any of those lines or anything like that that you need. I'm going to go ahead and put in some darker black colors. And I'm just going to go ahead and lay down my brush, and it's going to add some darker versions of this. Add some texture. Go ahead and add your black anywhere where it is truly very dark and black. I have a little black part that's right here, and kind of the edge of the tail a little bit. You can always add in any black pieces that you feel like you need. Start adding a little bit of definition, anything like that. Add any details to the eyes you feel like you need to do. So there's like kind of little like dots all around the eyes, like there's like a texture around it. And then there's like a little bit of shadow around it. And then of course you can add the highlight. You can either do the highlight now or after it's dried. It kind of depends on how vibrant you want the highlight to be. I like that. And we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of light to this. So I'm just using the different versions of my blues and the grays. And I'm doing my best to this part goes here. And I'm doing my best to try to match the direction. The direction is very important of the feathers. All right. Apologies, I have alarms going off. Okay, I'm going to put in a little bit more of a highlight right here. A little bit of some highlights down here. And again, just using my brush to add texture, highlights, lowlights. And that is pretty good. I'm just going to add a little bit of a dark section right there. And a little bit of a highlight over this kind of dark section right here. All right, and with that, we are pretty much done with the bird. Okay, and then the last thing that we have to do is we're going to go ahead and grab our liner brush, grab some yellow, grab some white, mix that together, and we're going to add a whole bunch of stamen coming into the center of these flowers. And just do your best with adding these. They're kind of, some of them are straight, some of them are curved. Just do your best. If it gets too clumpy, add just a tiny bit of water. And then you can get a little bit of that green and just put a little dab of greenish yellow on the ends of it. And then if you need to lighten any of that up, you can come in with a little bit more white. But yeah, I think that is pretty much it. I'm gonna add just a little bit more of a highlight to the eye. Add a little bit of black. All right, and that is pretty much done. If you wanted to add anything else, I would suggest just adding little details on the feathers. You can add little tiny feathers just on the outside, just little tiny details Just make sure that the water to paint ratio, there's quite a bit of water in it, so that it comes off your brush fairly easily. And there you have it. There is your beautiful little bird. Looks so cute. All right, and there you have it. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this class. If you're not a part of my Facebook community, head on over there and share your painting with all of us who are in class. Even if you're watching this many years later, you can still go and do that. You'll just have to scroll down in the albums in order to find it, or you can just post it on the wall. So thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.